The release date of World of Final Fantasy is getting closer and closer. At this point, I'm literally about to explode, especially as they keep announcing even more characters. There were already quite a few classic Final Fantasy characters confirmed for the game, but in the past month, give or take, we've had Crisis Core Tifa, Rydia, Snow, and Riku all confirmed. None of these are all that surprising though, and neither were the standard cast of crossover characters that always end up appearing. I'm looking at you, Cloud Strife. And Squall, as much as I love him. In this video, we want to take a look at some characters whose announcements came somewhat out of left field, as despite them being beloved in their own right, they just don't often appear in crossover titles due to the perceived lack of popularity. So here are 5 surprising but awesome characters who will be appearing in World of Final Fantasy. Refia. Despite appearing as one of the main characters in Final Fantasy III, Refia is actually quite a new character to the franchise. When the original game released in Japan way back in 1990, the protagonists were all nameless warriors, much like the original Final Fantasy game. But with the 3D remake that appeared on the Nintendo DS, this was changed, giving the 4 main characters backstories, personalities, unique appearances, and of course, names. This saw the arrival of Refia as one of the main protagonists, alongside Ark, Ingus, and Luneth. Due to a general lack of popularity in the title, these characters have often been restricted when it comes to appearing in other Final Fantasy or Square Enix properties, and when they do appear, it's often in a limited role. To date, only Ingus has made an appearance in a non-mobile title, and that was only as a DLC outfit for Onion Knight in Dissidia Duodecim. Not exactly a role that gave him center stage. World of Final Fantasy represents the first opportunity for one of the 4 to really branch out and introduce a whole new audience to Final Fantasy III, without it just being a throwaway experience that expects people to care. And you know what? We couldn't be more excited. Final Fantasy III often gets a bum deal, but it's really a good game, and I feel that more people should give it a chance. Refia's appearance in World of Final Fantasy can be a positive step towards encouraging people to tread a new path. Eiko. If I were to ask you to think about the cast of Final Fantasy IX, I'd wager that Eiko is not the character who would pop straight into your head. It's more likely to be someone like Zidane, Vivi, Garnet, Freya, Steiner, Quina, or Amarant. And if you didn't realize, I did just name the whole cast of the game. Maybe it's just me, but it felt like Eiko's name would be the next one to naturally roll off the tongue. That's not to say that she's a bad character by any stretch of the imagination, but her inclusion in World of Final Fantasy as opposed to say someone like Freya, Quina, or Garnet was definitely a surprise in my opinion. She does have some serious sass though, and it's going to be awesome to see her summons come into play. We already know that Fenrir is going to be getting some love due to Eiko's inclusion, and when you look at how they've rendered her character, you start to understand perhaps why she was picked over some of the others. Compared to the other 4 characters on this list, Eiko has actually appeared in a reasonable amount of crossover titles outside of the mobile games. But she also appeared as a playable character in both the Itadaki Street games and had a little cameo in Lord of Vermilion 2 and 3. Before her announcement, I'd have said an appearance by Eiko was unlikely. But now, she's the one character that I'm most excited to see. She's just so damn cute! Quistis Trepi. Before I go any further, I'd just like to state that I personally adore Quistis as a character. Growing up, she was a strong role model for me, and therefore I'm very excited to see that she's being given some of the spotlight in World of Final Fantasy, even if I feel like Selphie may have worked as a cuter choice. Despite appearing in one of the most successful games in the franchise, Quistis often had to play second fiddle to the other Final Fantasy VIII characters when it comes to appearances and spin-offs. To date, aside from this sporadic appearance in mobile games, Quistis has had cameos in both the original Dissidia and Itadaki Street Portable as an instructor. Her role in World of Final Fantasy therefore represents something of a step up in terms of exposure. Even with this being the case, I still can't help but feel that out of the characters on this list, her inclusion felt like the least surprising, even if it was still quite a surprise. I also have a feeling that she's going to end up scolding someone at some point, as even in her chibi style, she still looks rather serious. Shelke Rui. Dirge of Cerberus doesn't have the best of reputations within the wider franchise due to somewhat dubious gameplay, but the narrative it presented isn't half bad. We got to learn more of Vincent's backstory, see just how maniacal Hojo is, and we were introduced to a whole new band of characters called the Spheats. Amongst them was Shelke Rui, a 19-year-old woman who is permanently stuck in the body of a young girl due to experimentation she endured after being captured and taken to Deep Ground. Despite being an antagonist in the early parts of the game, Shelke ends up switching sides and assists Vincent and the WRO as they fight to save the planet. This therefore makes her a rather good candidate to be included in World of Final Fantasy, and it will be interesting to see how they incorporate her special SND abilities into the storyline. Prior to appearing in World of Final Fantasy, Shelke had only appeared in 2 of the older mobile games, and the trading card game. I'm therefore pretty sure that only the most ardent of Dirge Cerberus fans saw the announcement about her inclusion in World of Final Fantasy coming, but I'm rather glad that the developers made the decision, as despite her fragile frame, Shelke is rather fierce. Shilada. Alright, let's be honest, when Shilada was announced for World of Final Fantasy, how many people went, "Sure, who?" Raise your hands, don't be shy. If you did raise your hand, there's no need to feel bad, as Shilada's inclusion in World of Final Fantasy is perhaps the most random of all, and that's not a bad thing. She appeared as one of the main story-related characters in Crystal Chronicles Echoes of Time, and if you did end up playing that game, you deserve some kind of medal. The sub-franchise was starting to fizzle out at that point, and even Daryl, who has a rather strange love for Crystal Chronicles, had seen his interest wane. However, from what I understand, the game wasn't actually half bad if you A, played it on a DS, not Wii, and B, had people to play with. Shilada's franchise appearances outside of the Crystal Chronicles franchise have been very restricted over the years. To date, she has only appeared in Pictologica and Trading Card Game, 2 properties that basically just chronicle the entire franchise. It's unlikely that her appearance in World of Final Fantasy will drive a sudden surge in interest around the Crystal Chronicles franchise, but it's at least a nice ode to those people who did end up purchasing Echoes of Time. Apparently, there were just over 500,000 of you. Alright, so that's 5 surprising but awesome characters appearing in World of Final Fantasy, and they all ended up being female characters. So, out of all of the announcements we've had so far for World of Final Fantasy, who has surprised you the most? If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. We have so much planned in the near future, and we can't wait to share it with you all. This is Lauren signing out.